Meditation tonight, as I do a lot of times, is taken from the challenges and questions this week. It's not going to be the physical challenge, which is great, 98%. There's a lot of stuff there, a lot of wisdom when we talk about not overextending ourselves, but really do push so that you can make progress and grow. But we're going to talk about the internal challenge of visualization and the question of the week, which is, what is will and how do you strengthen it? So I do have a couple of examples that I want to talk about here, and then a little reading from this book, Zen in the Martial Arts. If you haven't read this yet, you should read it. It's a wonderful book. So our practice gives us many opportunities to develop and strengthen the will. And you can think of this as like determination, refusing to give up. When we talk about this in like the 5 ways of becoming martial arts, it's almost like a combination of perseverance and practicing hard, really pushing yourself. The tests that we do in particular are great opportunities for this. And if you have been to at least probably 10 meditation talks, you've heard some of the stories, the harrowing stories of tests. And they're not tests gone bad, they're tests gone right, where it's rough. People are crying. We've had kids tests where people just are sobbing by the end of the test. And I've had adult tests. Usually adults don't cry during the actual test, but sometimes they do. They cry at the end when they're reading their papers or when other people are reading their papers. That's when I cry the most. But there is a real experience going on here. And I'll tell you that part of the design of the test is purposefully to kind of break down the physical resistance, but also there's like a mental resistance that has a tendency to break down as well. And this is actually a technique that a lot of people in the world use for bad. This is like a cult technique where they'll like break you down by putting you through a lot, or just like putting you through a long weekend or series of things, and then they'll tell you things and kind of brainwash you. We do the same thing, except we brainwash you with good stuff. So we break you down over a test, and then I say really nice things about you at the end of the test, and people talk about how much they love their practice. The strengthening of the will is not a pretty sight. This is what Sifu Brown says all the time. This is why you're not allowed to watch the tests until you've been here for a certain amount of time, so we know that you're not going to quit. There's a kids test that we do that nobody is allowed to watch unless they're in the test. Their parents aren't allowed to watch it. They're allowed to talk about it after, but I can just imagine parents watching. I've let them be in the building, just like not looking at it, because if the kid's parent is here, the kid will just spend the whole time like looking like, is it okay if I quit? Please save me. Or the parent is looking the whole time thinking, this is impossible. Nobody can do this. So I'll give an example. This is the Lohan test, which is the very difficult test that I put the kids through if they want to come to the advanced kids class. And the test is one of 50 different things. And the most recent one that we did was 2 things. I've only done this, I think, one other time. You can either be running or you can be meditating. That's it. The kids are either running around the dojo, and this is an 1.5 hour to 2 hour long test. And they're either doing that or they're sitting and meditating. And everyone starts running, and then whenever they want to, they can decide, all right, I'm done running, and now I'm going to meditate. If they start meditating, they have to stay there and meditate the entire time, or they can get up and run one more time, but you can't go back and forth. You're either running or you're meditating. And I had a couple of kids run the entire time. They just ran straight up 2 hours. I don't know how long that is. It's got to be like half marathon or something. There's some of them are kind of fast. By the end of it, everyone's moving slowly. And then I had a couple of kids who meditated for an hour. I had one young lady in particular who surprised me so much because she is not, focus is not her strong suit. She is great attitude, always trying hard. Focus, not so much. She sat still as a mountain. She was like a stone for a half an hour straight. And I think that was one of the only times she's ever meditated. Now, when you look at this test, all of that, the Lohan tests are like that, but it is a really big challenge. There is nobody for whom running for 2 hours straight is easy, or meditating for that chunk of time is easy. And there, I had a kid meditate for an hour for, I think, like one of his, probably his first ever meditation, just sat there. When you're doing it for the first time, you're not really meditating. You're just sitting still and refusing to move. And that's a strong will, because your mind and your body don't want you to sit still. Your mind and your body want you to move. Really, to some extent, every time we meditate for any length of time is some amount of will involved. But the longer the meditation, the more that can become true. Now, ideally, your meditation is not like a fighting against your desire to move. It shouldn't feel like a lot of resistance. Ideally, your meditation is just wonderful. It's relaxing. You're just sitting still and your mind is just on the breath, and you're calm and peaceful and enjoying it the whole time. And an hour can go by like nothing. And you open your eyes, you're like, was that an hour? That felt like 5 minutes. It was so nice. That's not the way that it usually goes, but if it does, wonderful. So when we test for the higher ranks in the adult class, green sash is the first one we have to meditate, and it's for an hour, and you cannot move for an hour. And they go all the way up to 3 hours for the black sash. And what my Sifu always said was, if you can sit still for an hour for a green sash, you have either been doing the work and you're good at meditation, or you have a very strong will to be able to cause yourself to sit there still and not move. And I will tell you from personal experience, sometimes in that longer meditation, your body absolutely does not want to sit, and it's got pains and it's got itches and it's trying to do all kinds of stuff. It's throwing everything that it can at you to move. And so my red sash test was the most brutal meditation that I can remember. It was an hour of okay meditation followed by an hour of absolutely near vomit inducing pain in my hip. It was terrible. And if it were not a test, I would have just kind of popped my hip and got back to it and just meditated. It would have been great, but I wasn't allowed to move. So it was awful. And after the meditation was done, Sifu Brown asked us how we did. And he asked the first person, he's like, how's that meditation? And that student was like, bow, good, sir. Asked the next student, how was your meditation? It was nice, sir. I feel great. He comes to me and he asks me, he's like, how was your meditation? I'm like, it was the worst hour of my life. It was so painful. I thought I was going to vomit, and I thought I was going to fail the test because I was going to vomit. And the opportunity that is there for us whenever you have a really difficult experience like that is the strengthening of the will. And most people in an experience like that don't choose to continue. They choose to give up. And it's basically like, if the stakes are high enough, we might choose to stick it out, put ourselves through that difficult experience, and then come out stronger on the other end. That's what a test does. So that's Lohan test. Got to have a strong will to pass that test. Has anybody read any David Goggins? Or he does, I think, audio books, but yeah. Nobody's raising their hand. I thought that was a hand, kind of. No, you got something in the background that looks like a hand. This guy is an interesting character. He's a marathon, I think, ultra marathon runner, and he did this audio book that I listened to, and the whole philosophy is like, basically, you don't feel like doing it, too bad. Shut up and do it anyways. So the whole concept, and I really love this actually, is you're going to wake up and you decided that you want to run. You're training for a marathon. You're training for a half marathon. You're training for a 10-minute run, whatever. You've decided that. You wake up in the morning. Nobody wants to run in the morning. Everyone wants to stay in bed. So you have that, and it's your response to that thought, which is, I don't want to do this. I want to stay in bed. Your response to that is, too bad. Get up and do it. You said you were going to do this, so you do it. And if we are able to take motivation out of the equation, then strengthening the will does not become easier, it just becomes simpler. The problem that we have is we expect things to be easy. We want things to be easy for us. We want to feel motivated. We want to be like, yeah, this is fun. I love running. Running is great. Running sucks. Nobody loves running. If your knees hurt like mine, at least. Running is terrible. So there are lots of things that you can do to make it easier. You can put your shoes right next to the door so that it's like, all I got to do is slip into them and go. You can, make sure that nothing is scheduled, and you've got like the only thing you can see on your phone is the reminder that says it's time to run. Whatever it is, you can set up. But at the end of the day, you still got to go out and do it. And there will absolutely be days, if you are doing this daily, there are days where you're not going to feel like it. So what? There's going to be plenty of days where you don't feel like doing anything, and you still show up. So this is for us, like, even though class is a ton of fun, way more fun than running, there will still be days you don't feel like coming to class. There'll be days when you're heading home from work and it's like, oh, I know I'm supposed to turn this way to go to the dojo, but if I just keep going straight, I'll be on my couch in 5 minutes, and then I'll be eating pizza and it'll be wonderful. But you're like, no, I got to do it. So you pull in and you go to class, and there will be lots of days where it's tons of fun. And a lot of people say this is what they love about martial arts. It's like the lady who's here tonight. She's like, I hate going to the gym. It's boring. It's terrible, but this seems like it's fun. Absolutely. Martial arts is fun a lot of times. And then there are the other times. But there will be certainly times in whatever kind of experiences you're choosing, whatever kind of workout or whatever kind of growth that you're taking on, where you don't feel like doing it. And so my suggestion to you is, one of the ways to deal with that is to take motivation out of it, and you just go. So strengthening the will is just, on some level, showing up and doing the thing. It would be really nice to have that strong feeling of like, yes, I'm doing this, and having that motivation, having that energy, but it's not always going to be there. So strong will sometimes feel like resistance. It will sometimes feel like I got to just ignore everything that's going on in my mind and all my feelings and just do it anyways. And that's it. It's kind of like discipline. It's like you're just doing the thing. I'm pairing this with the idea of visualization, because there are a couple of ways that these things relate to each other. One of the ideas here is something that I'll talk about from this book, Zen and the Martial Arts. This is a wonderful book with lots of important concepts, but this one is about the idea of it's called confident seeing. It's about visualization. It's about how it kind of works in with energy work, Qigong. And this is, I'll do my best to read this quickly and make it interesting. It's only about 2.5 pages. So this is Joe Himes, one of Bruce Lee's students. He's talking about his experience practicing. He says, one of the first lessons one learns in the dojo is that the mind is a powerful factor in everything you do, including those exercises that seem to require a maximum of physical strength. For instance, the first time I confronted a brick that I had to break with the edge of my hand, I was certain it would be my hand and not the brick that would break. I relayed my fear to Pat Strong, my longtime instructor and friend. I want you to make several passes at the brick, he said. Think to yourself, this is how I will break it. Don't then visualize the underside of the brick. Don't consider the top of the brick, just think of the bottom. When you feel ready, clear your mind of all thoughts except the image of your hand passing through the brick. He then set the brick to be broken atop two other bricks, forming a small arch. I kneeled in front of the bricks and brought my hand down slowly, stopping at the outer surface of the brick, but visualizing my hand coming through to the underside. Now, shouted Pat. To my surprise, I sliced the brick neatly in half, scarcely aware that I had done it. Now, I will tell you a story from my own practice that is similar to this story. The first time I went to break a piece of concrete was with a knife hand, but it was in front of at least 100 people in a demonstration in downtown Birmingham near our school in Michigan. And it was a bunch of strangers and a lot of people who I practiced with, who I really cared about. I really valued their opinion of me. And I was like 18 years old. And the brick was being held up like this by somebody. And I went up to break it. And I had some thoughts that sounded like, I can break this brick. It's a piece of concrete. And I had other thoughts that sounded like, I'm not going to break this brick. I'll tell you, if you have any of those thoughts, you will not do the break. And I threw a really hard knife hand that stopped right on the brick and hurt my hand. Not injured, but it was like that. The brick didn't move and it didn't feel anything. My hand sure felt a lot. And Steve Brown had me try again. Thump, stopped on the brick again. He allowed me to save face by putting it on a pair of cinder blocks and letting me break it with a palm strike, which is easier to do. But I thought about that moment quite a bit over the next couple of weeks and months, and then I kind of let it go. I didn't think about it again until it was another demonstration, this time on Kung Fu Retreat. And Steve Brown said, I remember you couldn't break that one piece of concrete with a knife hand. Well, today you've been working hard, you're stronger, you're going to break two pieces of concrete. And I was like, okay, so I'm all day long visualizing myself breaking the two pieces of concrete. I see my knife hand, I feel it really strong. I see it slicing through those pieces of concrete. I see the concrete broken. I see myself like being cheered on by hundreds of people, and there were only like 70 people in a retreat. But strong afternoon of visualization. And then it comes to the end of the day, we're doing this demo and they stack up the concrete and Steve Brown says, you're breaking 3 pieces of concrete. And so I go, yes, sir. And I go up, they stack up the concrete and I'm like, I'm imagining myself doing this. And I go, my loudest ki, my strongest knife, and I break through exactly 2 pieces of concrete. The third one just stays there untouched. And I like to think that it was because of how strong my visualization was that I broke exactly 2 pieces of concrete. I'll tell you, it's actually harder, I think, to break 2 pieces, because once you start breaking them, it's usually easier to break through at least 3 or 4. My knife hand was probably just not strong enough. But that is an example of the strength of visualization. I am absolutely positive to this day that if I had been visualizing 3 pieces of concrete all day, that I would have been able to break those. But here we are. I have the ability to tell that fun story from my own practice. I saw at the last Wax Ash test I went to a couple of weeks ago, John broke, I want to say 8 pieces of concrete. It was a massively strong, I think it was a palm strike. Yeah, super impressive. So moving on to this story. So I soon learned that almost all successful athletes use this system of visualization. At that time, I was writing a book about tennis with Billie Jean King, and I asked her why she so rarely double faulted under pressure in a match. And she said, before the second serve, I visualize it going in. I never permit myself to think for even a moment about the possibility of a double fault. I'll tell you briefly, my tennis career was not the same as this, because I would hit it into the net and then I would think every single time I'm about to double fault. And so I double faulted every time. And I got to the point where I had to just lob it over. It doesn't look very cool in high school tennis to have to be lobbing over your second serve. I don't do that anymore because I visualize. So What if negative thoughts do enter your mind? During one of my last workouts with Bruce Lee, my mind was on a letter I had received from a publisher asking me to rewrite a number of chapters of a book on which I had already spent a great deal of time. I was depressed, convinced that the book was not publishable. Bruce instantly sensed that my concentration was elsewhere and asked if this were so. I admitted my preoccupation and told him what was bothering me. The mind is like a fertile garden, Bruce said. It will grow anything you wish to plant, beautiful flowers or weeds. And so it is with successful, healthy thoughts or with negative ones that will, like weeds, strangle and crowd the others. Do not allow negative thoughts to enter your mind, for they are the weeds that strangle confidence. That's great advice from Bruce Lee. That sounds just fine, I said, but the thoughts are there. How do I get rid of them? I'll give you my secret for ridding my mind of negative thoughts, Bruce said. When such a thought enters my mind, I visualize it as being written on a piece of paper. Then I visualize myself wadding the paper up into a tight ball. Then I mentally light it on fire and visualize it burning to a crisp. The negative thought is destroyed, never to enter my mind again. Beautiful, I said, but how can I develop the confidence to do the job? By visualizing success rather than failure, by believing I can do it rather than I can't. Negative thoughts are overpowering only if you encourage them and allow yourself to be overpowered by them. I realized then that the negative thoughts were indeed overpowering me. Although I rationally knew I could do the job, I had never thought of visualizing the problem solved or the work done, as Bruce suggested, nor had I ever thought through the problem, as Pat Strong had taught me to do with the brick. But this time, when I started the rewrite, I kept the thought of success uppermost in my mind and quickly finished. I'm not quite done with this, but I'm going to bring up this idea of one of the ways that will and visualization fit together is just simply this: the strength of will to hold a positive visualization in your mind and not let yourself, like I used to do in tennis, imagine and visualize the double fault. So the strength of will is also kind of related to concentration and focus. If you have a strong will, you're able to kind of have that intentionality with your mind, and then that can propel your body to do what it needs to do. So you'll have this opportunity when you're struggling in a test to use your strong will and your ability to concentrate, to visualize yourself doing it. You don't need to wait until the test to visualize yourself doing it, though. Of course, that is going to be helpful, but you should visualize, like every time you're in class, you're facing the mirror, you're imagining somebody in front of you throwing a punch and imagine yourself moving out of the way. If you're throwing a hard technique, let's say you're trying to learn a difficult kick and you can't imagine yourself doing a good crescent kick. You can only imagine like your crappy crescent kick with your leg way down here and your hands dropping and all that. You got to be able to see yourself doing it, and then that will transfer over into your body actually being able to do it. And the flip is true. If you cannot imagine yourself doing a technique, if you can't visualize it, it's almost a guarantee that your body won't be able to do it. So you got to have that strong imagination. So he goes on, the technique of visualization is used by martial artists in many situations. For example, karate instructor Sam Brodsky recently planned a demonstration for his students in which he intended to break 9 one-inch slabs of concrete with one punch of his fist. The concrete was stacked on the floor in front of him, and Brodsky took a half-kneeling position, made 2 false passes of the brick, inhaled deeply. With an ear-splitting ki, he smashed his fist into the slabs. All but the last 2 shattered. After the applause, I noticed Brodsky's face turn white, and he turned the class over to an assistant. I found him in the dressing room, examining his hand with dismay. He was clearly injured. Although he was almost certainly in pain, he gave no sign of it as he left, saying he thought he had better see his doctor. Later, I learned that he had pulverized many of the small bones in the knuckles of his right hand. The doctors called the damage a displaced fracture and decided to operate. I should take this opportunity to tell you that I will never make you punch concrete. If you feel really good about it, and I feel really good about it, I might let you do it, but you'll probably choose other techniques where you're less likely to break your hand to try to break stuff. Okay, so after the operation, his hand was put together with wires. Brodsky was told it would take 15 to 18 weeks for any kind of healing process to begin. The doctor said it would probably be a year before he regained even partial use of the hand. It's a terrible injury. Brodsky, who had studied martial arts in Korea and Japan, believes the key to healing lies in the mind. On the night he came home from the hospital with his hand in a cast, he lay in bed with his eyes shut, imagining that his hand was a building site. Here is his story. As I lay in bed, I imagined a whistle going off, and I visualized a horde of little men with mortar and cement and welding tools climbing down into the cast to work on reconstructing my hand. The men had different colored work clothes and hard hats, even slogans on their t-shirts. I concentrated so hard on the way they were dressed and their tools and equipment that I forgot the pain. Then sleep came. In the morning, I woke up, imagining that I had heard the whistle go off. It was as though the little men had worked a full night shift putting together the bones in my hand. Every night for 3.5 weeks before I went to sleep, I heard that whistle going off, and I saw those little men at work on my hand. They had pulleys hooked up to the bone with braces and couplings. 2 weeks later, when I went back to see the doctor, he took my hand out of the cast and said the healing process was amazing, but that my knuckles were frozen together. I would have a stiff hand. He put my hand in a sling and sent me home. Each night from then on, before I went to sleep, I imagined the same men at work on my hand, but this time their equipment had changed. Now they were working with files, oil, graphite, and materials that lubricate and make things smooth. They began filing and sanding my knuckles. When I went back to the doctor again 7 weeks later, he said it was a miracle. The healing process, which he had estimated would take a year, had required only 10 weeks. 6 months after his hand had healed, Brodsky successfully competed the demonstration before his students. Now, I have a hard time believing that's true, because if you busted your hand like that, you would have a very difficult time going back and doing that same break. But I'll take his word for it, and I guarantee that at least somebody in the history of martial arts has done that, busted their hand and then gone back to do the same break successfully. And that takes a lot of strong will for sure. So the author goes on, he says, last winter I used Brodsky's technique of visualizing the healing process to clear up a severe bronchial congestion. Every morning and evening for 3 successive days, I carefully visualized a snowblower moving through my bronchial tubes, clearing out the congestion and opening up the passages. I practiced seeing myself getting healthy, and very soon I was. That's how I prefer to use visualization to heal myself, not after I break something. But it can be used. So the finishing kind of topic here that I want to talk about is this idea of visualization in doing something like a Qigong or a pranayama, healing your body. So some people use Qigong to strengthen the body in order to do really impressive things like demonstrating a break, or I've seen my Sifu do this with Qigong on his neck, where he presses a guan, which is a stick, against his neck and pushes in and bends the stick. And it's very impressive. And he will do that, and he'll say, this is the silliest use of Qigong. This is just so that people can understand that it is possible to do incredible things with, the body's energy and ability to heal and all of that. But the most important things to be able to do would be to heal your body, or to use that strength of will and visualization to, in meditation, raise the consciousness. So the idea of Qigong is to be able to direct the flow of energy in your body. Now in Tai Chi, this is something that we do with movement. You can also do it just standing still. Whether you believe that Qi is like a separate kind of energy in your body that flows through these separate passageways called meridians, or if you just believe that the body has energy, which you should believe, because if your body didn't have energy, you'd be dead. It's got that, the electrical energy moving through these chemical, these things that happen, thoughts, neurons firing and all that stuff. There's energy in your body. And certainly your body has energy that can be directed to the healing process, right? So I've had experiences where I've been able to, use that to maybe heat up my hands and stay warmer when it's cold. Back when I lived in Michigan, I definitely feel like using this to heal your body is a great idea. But most important would be for our meditation to be able to use your visualization, maybe in the beginning of your meditation practice, to imagine your energy, your awareness, your consciousness, all of that going up and being placed in the mind rather than having your energy out in your limbs. So whenever you do some kind of a Qigong, it involves three things. It's concentration, will, and breath. So the visualization is a component of that. The concentration and the will, really, that's when you're using your visualization without allowing your mind to wander. The will is like the directed intention of your visualization. And the breath, you are just imagining the visualization and the breath going together. So you might inhale and imagine like you're gathering the energy up, and then exhale and imagine sending the energy somewhere. So visualization along with a strong will and concentration, this is the component of kind of accessing your body's ability to do kind of incredible things, whether it's breaking something that you shouldn't be able to break, or healing yourself, or just having a deeper state of consciousness for your meditation. This is it. So I've babbled on for way more than long enough. We're going to sit and meditate, and I'll kind of walk you through a few minutes of a visualization to start our meditation off. So sit comfortably. So make sure you have good posture with your spine straight. This is important for meditation, and it's important for energy work. You don't want to have a bad posture. So no slouching, shoulders back, chin parallel to the ground, hands upturned. You can go ahead and hit the light, Zelda. So the eyes are closed and upturned to the point between the eyebrows. One of the reasons that we do this is to have your awareness up in your mind, and this has a tendency to send your consciousness, your energy, however you want to think of that, where your eyes and where your mind are focused, that's where your energy goes. That's where the sensation is. So if you're thinking about your feet, then that's what you're going to feel. If you're thinking about your hands, then that's what you're going to feel. But if your eyes are upturned and your attention is up there, then you're going to keep your consciousness, your awareness up in the mind, the third eye, and this is where we want that awareness to stay in meditation. So let's begin with a couple of deep breaths. Start with all the breath out, and then inhale. And as you do that, today we're going to imagine like a glowing light. And you can choose whatever color. I usually choose the color yellow. You just choose a glowing light in your belly as you inhale. And then as you exhale, imagine that light flowing up to your third eye. And it can just wrap around the spine as it goes up, or you can just imagine it moving up through your body. So inhale is the light glowing, filling up your body as you inhale from the belly. And then the exhale, push that light up, feel it rising up to the third eye. So you want this breathing to be nice and deep. Full, slow breath. The full exhale. And have your visualization be very strong. Your mind is completely focused on the visualization and the feeling of the breath. The more detailed the visualization is, the stronger the impact it will have on you. If your mind wanders, just bring it back. A very strong visualization has a feeling component as well. So you can feel, maybe it's a sensation of warmth or some kind of a sensation, almost like water flowing up through your body. You feel that flow, and you pair that with the visualization, it's going to be strong. So do that for a few more breaths, a couple more cycles of that visualization. And then when you're ready, let it go and just go back to feeling the breath without judgment, without manipulating the breath. Just let it come in and let it go out. If your mind starts wandering again, you can come back to the visualization if you want to use it to strengthen your focus.